Leading up to the full release of Godzilla vs. Kong, we have got to learn a lot about this epic battle of the century. But perhaps some of you are not 100% invested into the deep lore and creation of this epic matchup between the king of the monsters and the eighth wonder of the world, Godzilla vs. Kong. So we've gathered up 5 interesting facts from both the historical original battle that took place in the 1960s and some from their modern face-off. So sit back and enjoy. Let's get to it. Both Godzilla and King Kong have some of the longest running franchises in the entire cinema industry. The very original King Kong came out in the 1930s and was said to be a massive inspiration for the creation of the original Godzilla that came out in the 1950s, about 20 years later. The decades that passed allowed for the creation of many different movies for both monsters. To date, Godzilla has 3 times as many movies as King Kong, having a massive list of 36 different movies. While the King Kong franchise now has 12 entries, still a lot of movies in the ape's history. Out of nearly 50 movies between the two monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong is only the second time the two have ever met. So when you sit down to watch this new movie, you truly are experiencing a bit of cinema history. King Kong vs. Frankenstein. King Kong vs. Godzilla just seems like a match made in heaven. But did you know that Kong was originally not supposed to battle against a big G-man? Godzilla vs. Kong may not have ever happened if it wasn't for this awesome story of how their first battle came to be. A long time ago, the writers for what would become King Kong vs. Godzilla originally had Kong facing off against a terrifying Frankenstein monster. Not the classic Frankenstein we're all used to seeing, but a monster created out of the parts of various dangerous animals. This abomination would have been created by a member of the crazed scientist Frankenstein family, hence the connection in the title, and was set in stone until the script was sold to a certain Japanese film studio, Toho. After Toho purchased the right to King Kong vs. Frankenstein, they made the secretive choice of swapping the Frankenstein monster for their current leading star, Godzilla, and the rest is history. The year was 1992. At the time, this was the 60th birthday for Toho, and the studio wanted to really celebrate this milestone by bringing back one of their most successful box office movies. You guessed it, a rematch between Godzilla and King Kong. This was an odd time for both franchises, as the Kong series had just had one of its worst performing and reviewed titles to date in King Kong Lives. And Godzilla was struggling to regain the popularity it once had in Japan as it was trying to get its new Heisei era of movies going. Toho believed that a rematch would spark an interest in Godzilla and their new era of movies, and hopefully make them a ton of money that could be invested into the new project. However, the rights to King Kong during this time were really hard to get a hold of, and expensive. So sadly, the fight never happened. But that very well could be a good thing, as it allowed for the eventual creation of Peter Jackson's King Kong and has made Godzilla vs. Kong all the more special and anticipated. Sometimes, size doesn't matter, but when it comes to the world of kaiju and monster movies, bigger is better. That's why both Godzilla and Kong have grown over twice as large as they were back in their 1960s square-off. In King Kong vs. Godzilla, both monsters were still very large. Kong came in at just under 150 feet, or 45 meters, and Godzilla was practically the same size, given a meter or two. So when it finally became time for the Monsterverse to come to be, Legendary and its creative leads knew they had to not only make their monsters much larger than they were in King Kong vs. Godzilla, but vastly larger than any version of the monsters ever made to that point. In the time since Godzilla 2014 and the first Monsterverse movie, Toho has once again gained the crown of largest Godzilla ever. But Kong will be the largest he has ever been in Godzilla vs. Kong by a long shot. Kong is now 337 feet or a little over 100 meters tall, surpassing the Kong from the original versus as the tallest Kong ever. Godzilla's still a big lad, retaining his size of 393 feet or 120 meters that was seen in the King of the Monsters movie. Godzilla vs. Kong takes place in an alternate reality to our own. In normal people's speech, this pretty much means that the movie doesn't have to follow any sort of realism in our current understanding of the term. This is important due to how all over the place the tone of realism has been in the MonsterVerse movies. 2014 Godzilla seemed like it could have been a true story. Outside of the giant monsters, the universe of that movie was spot on to our real world. No strange human technology, just tanks, ships, explosives, and good old boots on the ground style military action. When King of the Monsters came out, it had a lot of fans upset due to how the movie more or less retconned any sort of realism that was set in place before it. With no proper explanation as to how mankind now had underwater bases, Star Wars-like ships, and monster-talking technology, it just felt a little weird. Director Adam Wingard stating that Godzilla vs. Kong is set in an alternate reality that is still grounded in realism but has more sci-fi elements thrown in allows the viewers to not have to double take when some sort of sci-fi tech comes onto the screen. So for those of you who got worked up over the lack of realism in King of the Monsters, at least you know you now have an explanation as to why Godzilla vs. Kong may have otherworldly technology. The MonsterVerse is not just monsters showing up in a reality that is our own, it's a universe where we showed up in the monster's turf. And those are 5 interesting facts about Godzilla vs. Kong and its long-lasting history in cinema. What do you think? Discuss down below if you have any more facts that you think need to be shared. This has been Jacob, everyone. Welcome to Dangerville. Thank you all for your time, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.